Okay, step 9, let's go to page 34 in our step guide. And let's start with a couple of readings. On page 76, there's a paragraph that starts with probably there are. Karen, will you read that?
Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize a spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we've gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. But our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own fault, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam.
Now, if you go to page 79, starting with although these reparations.
Although these reparations take innumerable forms, there are some general principles which we find guiding. Reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any lengths to find a spiritual experience, we ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We may lose our position or reputation or face jail, but we are willing. We have to be. We must not shrink at anything. Usually, however, other people are involved. Therefore, we are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr who would needlessly sacrifice others to save himself from the alcoholic pit.
And then page 80, the top of the page.
Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, asked God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink.
And then page 83, starting with yes.
Yes, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we're sorry won't fit the bill at all. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it, being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. We now take our list from step 8 to our sponsor. We review each item and make a plan that includes the most appropriate action to take in each case. I'm in the guidebook now. Consideration of others in each case. The order of amends and timing and planning. Our follow-through with payments and obligations. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any length for victory over alcohol. At the moment, we're trying to put our lives in order. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It's harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We do not dodge our creditors. We ask that we be given strength and direction to do the right thing, no matter what the personal consequences may be. We must not shrink at anything. We are not to be the hasty and foolish martyr. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. Mumbling, there is a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fill the bill at all. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. The spiritual life is not a theory, we have to live it. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet. We don't crawl before anyone. The promises that Karen just read are like maybe the most famous thing in the big book, other than rarely have we seen a person feel who has thoroughly followed our path. But let's look at them again. And it says that these promises, that if we're painstaking with this phase of our development, we're going to be amazed before we're halfway through. This is in a section in the book where step 8 and 9 are mingled together in the book. Well, what's halfway through that section? Well, step 8's halfway through. I say that when these two people are standing here right sides, it's really just one person. I've been in this position and I've been in that position, and when I get out of both of those positions, I'm halfway through. That's being willing to make amends to them all. It's realizing that I'm enough. Who I am is enough. The resources that I need to make amends are going to be there. This new way of life where I have the resources that are supplied to me by Him who has all power and knowledge, I'm starting to depend on that. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. So halfway through is at the end of step 8, I think. And the promises are a result of being awakened to the reality of the presence of God and our vital sixth sense. Do you remember the sketch I had up there earlier when we were talking about step 1, unmanageability, where we got our ego and we got this all-encompassing higher power that furnishes us with a vital sixth sense. The ego with only 5 senses, it isn't good enough. The sixth sense, which gradually becomes a working part of the mind, is a God consciousness. It's a result of a spiritual awakening. It's after getting through the end of step 8, we start to have this, we sense the flow of power into us. What used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. We will always have what we need when we need it. That's also what solves the fear problem. Step 9 is the beginning of living versus managing. This is step 9, making amends, is just us being who we are, this new person that's not afraid of anything. Our past is what it is, so we're going to face it. We don't have to cross the street when we see our past coming up the other side of the street. We can meet them on the sidewalk, and it's good enough. Who we are is good enough. It's enough. And we know it because we became willing to make amends to them all. The new person has emerged from the process of steps 1 through 8. So in step 9, the new person is active. The new person goes out and faces everything in his past. He doesn't shrink at anything. He doesn't crawl before anyone. A remorseful mumbling that he's sorry won't fill the bill at all. No, it's not about that. It's about going and meeting this thing head on. And in 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happened. It's good. I wish we had time to share in the group here some of the experiences you guys have had with step 9, and I suppose we could try it. But I could tell you this. If I've heard one story of a coincidence that's unbelievable in step 9, I've heard 1,000 of them, where it seemed impossible that this thing could ever be righted. And all they had to do was go and be there. And it happened. Sometimes somebody you thought you would never see ever in your life, you run into them 30 minutes later. It's crazy. It's scary how accurate it is. When people tell these stories about how they thought they could never make this amend, and they ask God, well, okay, I'm willing, so I guess if you can find this guy, I'll make the amend, and they walk out the door, and there the guy's sitting waiting for them. I mean, it's just that way. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but not much. I mean, it's really that way. So this is about us being willing to make amends to them all in step 8, and then going out in the world and living, not crawling before anyone, not being, what's a hasty and foolish martyr? That's a guy who goes out and confesses all of his sins because he's guilty. We're not that either. That doesn't always help, and that's why we talk about it with our sponsor. I think we got to talk about our step 8 list with our sponsor before we start making moves, because our ego is apt to be doing it for the wrong reason. If I'm this guy, my ego is apt to kind of nurture his amends around the things that will still leave him being admired. If you think about the new person, this person who believes that he's going to have what he needs when he needs it, if you think about the person who is been awakened to the reality that he has with him the vital sixth sense. He's going to know how to do and all that. And then read the promises again. It's not the things that happen to you. The promises are who you are at this point. The promises is who you are now. And whether this gets on a video or not, but think about it. We're going to do a new freedom and a new happiness. That's in here. We'll not regret the past or wish to shut the door on it. That's in here. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we've gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for us. It's who we are now. It's not like all these, oh wow, all these good things happened to me when I did the ninth step. No, it's who we are. We're a new person.